awake again, and not just awake wired. Your mind won't stop running. Maybe you don't even know what started it this time, just that feeling in your chest, like something's about to happen. Even though nothing is. Sometimes it's anxiety. Sometimes it's trauma. Sometimes it's just your nervous system doing the only thing it knows how to do, protect you. Stay alert. Stay ready. But you don't need to be ready right now. You're here. Safe. Or at least safer than your body thinks. You don't have to fix anything. You don't even have to fall asleep. You just have to rest inside this quiet space. Take a soft breath, just enough to remind yourself you're still here. Let your shoulders fall. You've already made it through so much more than people realize. Now come with me. Let's drift somewhere, older, stranger, a little further from the now. It's the 13th century. The world is shifting, and no one knows it yet. The wind carries a strange smell, not just dust but ash, but burnt fabric, broken things. People are whispering in alleys and huts, saying names that don't mean much to you. Names from the east. And one name repeated over and over, low and fearful, Temujin. Though most just call him the Khan. You're not a warrior. Not a noble. You don't ride horses. You don't draw maps. You're just someone trying to live. Keep your goats fed. Boil water when you can. Maybe keep your children quiet when strangers pass too close. The Mongol invasions aren't history to you. They're rumors, roads gone silent, trade routes vanished overnight. They're the sound of hooves in the distance, where there should be none. Sometimes nothing happens for days. The sun rises, the dust glows gold, and all seems calm. And then one day, the town is gone. No warning, no reason, no survivors to tell you why. You keep moving, keep listening for silence that's too quiet. Keep learning which prayers feel real and which ones only echo. But the strange thing is, you're still here. There is no glory in this story, no noble stand. You just try not to be noticed. You try not to look like something worth taking. If this gentle voice is helping even just a little, you can like or subscribe, only if it brings you comfort. There's no pressure. Right now, just ask yourself, where are you? What time is it? Are you lying in the dark, curled beneath a blanket? Are your legs tangled up in sheets? Or are you just sitting still, with the light of your screen flickering in the dark? Whatever shape you're in, it's okay. Let your eyes soften. Let the muscles around your mouth go slack. Let your breath slow. You don't need to sleep yet. Just rest inside the story. Let's begin tonight's quiet journey. What it was like to live through the Mongol invasions. As someone without power, without weapons, and without a voice. Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into the mud-caked edge of a forgotten steppe where smoke curls in lazy loops over straw roofs, and the morning breeze carries more than just the scent of dung and pine. You're in a small village without a name that anyone outside remembers, surrounded by frost-nipped trees and days that are mostly made of work. No roads lead here, not really. Just cart tracks and rumour. The world feels still. Too still. And yet, there it is, the distant thud of hooves. You hear it before you see anything. A sound that doesn't belong to horses, you know. It doesn't come with the lazy clop of oxen or the bounce of familiar carts. It's heavier, rhythmic, like thunder with direction, like war warming up its shoulders. This is the part where you probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're awake at 2 a.m. or 4:17 in the morning and the world feels too sharp or too quiet, let me know where you are in the comments. What time is it there? Are you curled under a blanket or just sitting in the glow of your phone? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. At first, the sound blends in with the usual creaks of dawn. You stretch your arms, rub your eyes. Let your feet sink into the cold, packed earth of your sleeping mat. There's a fire to restart, goats to poke. Everything is as it should be, except it isn't. Because the birds have gone quiet, and the goats aren't where they should be. You're not a soldier. You're not even someone important enough to be mistaken for one. You fix thatched roofs, barter for eggs, and complain about the dryness of bread. But today, something ancient and wide is approaching something that doesn't care whether your roof leaks or whether you're the youngest or kindest in the village. The sound grows, not fast, but steady, not close, but coming. The elders shuffle to the edge of the path that leads nowhere and everywhere. You join them, mouth-dry hands clenched. One man mutters, could be a hunting party. Another spits too many. Still no dust cloud, still no banner. In this part of the world, around the early 13th century, the Mongol armies were famous, not just for their speed and cruelty, but for their eerie silence right before they arrived. No trumpets, no flags, just the knowing, and then the not knowing. Historians still argue whether the Mongols intentionally used silence and psychological fear as military tactics, or if it was just the byproduct of their efficient decentralized communication. Either way, it works. You are afraid. A chicken squawks from somewhere behind you. The village dog, a mangy thing with a limp, begins to bark, but not toward the road, toward the trees. And then you see it. Just a blur at first. One figure on horseback, wearing what might be armor, might be leather, might be some terrible mix of both. The helmet gleams, not in a regal way, in a practical way, like it's seen more blood than rain. You step back, the hooves multiply. 2 riders, 5, 10. Some wear furs you can't name. One has a hawk on his shoulder, another carries a long curved bow slung across his back. And every single one of them rides like the horse is part of him, like walking was something they forgot how to do. The village elder raises a hand in greeting, a long shot, a kind of ancient optimism. You can almost hear him thinking, maybe they just want food. Maybe we're just in the way. One of the riders dismounts. He's not especially tall, doesn't look cruel, but his eyes are flat like he's bored already. He gestures. Another rider unrolls something. A map? No. A scroll. There's writing on it, but not in your language. The elder stammers. You watch. And then it happens. A goat bolts. A child yelps. The scroll drops. A rider lifts a horn, not to sound it, but to strike. It's not chaos yet. That comes later. First is the stunned pause, the awful second, where everyone realizes that the day has changed. You drop whatever you're holding. You don't remember if it's a basket or a broom or your breakfast. Your feet move before your mind does. You run. And even now, some weird part of you hopes this is a mistake. It isn't. The Mongol armies moved faster than anyone thought possible. Some villages were taken in hours, others never knew what hit them. They rode in rotating shifts, sleeping in the saddle, firing arrows from horseback with precision that still makes military historians sigh with frustration. They weren't just conquerors, they were engineers of fear. A quirky detail: Mongol horses had 2 stomachs. This made them efficient in long-distance endurance and able to digest grass that would leave other animals useless. You're not sure if that's useful now, but it's something to think about as you trip over a root and scramble back up. You hear the first scream. Not from your throat. Not yet. You don't turn around. You don't want to know whose voice that was. You just run. You dart behind a tree, pressing yourself flat against the bark, as if being still can make you disappear. Your chest rises and falls like a panicked bellows. The air smells like pine mud and something coppery you don't want to name. A horse gallops past on the trail. You just left the rider's braid bouncing rhythmically with the motion. You catch a glimpse of a bow, strung, ready. And then for a breathless moment, nothing. Just your heart thudding against your ribs and the sound of branches swaying like they haven't noticed anything strange. You wait and wait. Your toes are numb. Your back is cramped. You realize you forgot your shoes. Or maybe you never had shoes, just the leather wraps you wore for market. Either way, it doesn't matter now. Because whatever you had, it's behind you. When the sun finally pushes higher through the trees, you take a few shaky steps north, or what you think is north. There's no compass, just moss and memory, and a faint, foolish hope that if you walk far enough, you'll find something untouched, something that hasn't heard hoofbeats yet. You pass a stream and kneel down to drink. The water's cold. It cuts across your tongue like glass. You drink too fast, cough, then drink again. Your hands shake. Eventually, you find a low slope and collapse under a bush. Pine needles dig into your side, but you don't move. Sleep comes not because you want it, but because your body has run out of choices. You dream of bread. Not warm, fresh bread, just edible bread. And the sound of your mother humming a song you forgot the words to long ago. When you wake, your mouth is dry again. The sun's lower now. Afternoon, evening. The shadows have stretched across the forest floor like lazy fingers. You move again. Step by aching step. Every root and stone finds your feet like it's personal. Historians still debate whether the Mongols intended to depopulate the regions they moved through, or simply left such destruction in their wake because of their military efficiency. Either way, villages like yours, the nameless, unprotected, too small to fight, often vanished from maps without a word. Sometimes it's not the battles people remember, it's the silences afterward. As you walk, your thoughts unravel. You try to count how many people made it out. The boy with the missing tooth. The woman who always gave away her eggs. The old man who claimed he once wrestled a bear. None of them were warriors. Just people with soft hands and stories that never got written down. Your stomach growls. Loud enough that you flinch and look around. Nothing. Not yet. You find a patch of wild berries. You hesitate. You've heard stories berries that kill berries that stain your soul. But hunger doesn't leave much room for poetry. You eat. Slowly. Testing. Waiting. They're bitter. But you don't die. You eat more. And then you hear something. Not hooves. Not shouting. Singing. A single voice. Wavering. In a language you don't know. You freeze. The voice is close. Maybe around the bend. A woman maybe. Or a young boy. High and strange and not trying to be beautiful. Just singing because why not you inch forward? Step by slow step. And then you see them. A group. 5 or 6. Dirty. Thin. But alive. Refugees like you. They look up when they hear your step. One nods. Another gestures for you to sit. No names. No introductions. Just shared breath and worn-out faces. You sit. Someone hands you a piece of bark with mushroom paste smeared on it. It tastes like rot and earth and survival. A woman with hollow cheeks points west and says, "Castle." Another man says, "Safe." Maybe. That's all you need. The next morning you walk with them. The group moves like ghosts. No one speaks unless they have to. You travel by shadow, by instinct, sleeping in shifts, eating bark bugs and whatever doesn't try to bite back, and always, always listening for hooves. One night someone coughs too loud and a squirrel panics up a tree. The entire group freezes like prey animals. And then the old man, he must be almost 40, starts laughing, quietly, like he's remembering something absurd. He looks at you and whispers, "I used to worry about taxes." It's the funniest thing you've heard in days. You almost choke trying not to laugh. A strange fact. Some Mongol leaders implemented tax exemptions for religious figures and teachers. It wasn't all slash and burn. There were laws, systems, sometimes even mercy. But not for you, not for villages without temples or scrolls. Still the West is calling. You don't know if the castle is real. You don't know if safety is a word that still means anything. But you keep walking, because walking is all you have, and because not walking means remembering, and you're too tired for that. The days blur like charcoal smudged across parchment. You walk until your legs feel carved from the same stone you sleep against. When you stop, it's not because you've reached anywhere safe. It's just because your body won't move anymore. The others settle beside you like sacks dropped in a line. No words, just the shuffle of limbs, the slow exhale of another day survived. You wake in the dew-back, aching ribs, poking through your own skin, like your body's trying to escape itself. Someone's gone. You don't ask who. If they come back, they come back. If they don't, you adjust the count in your head and keep walking. That's all you can do. Adjust the count. Keep walking. One night, you cross a ruined village. Just ash and footprints like ghosts tried to build something and change their minds halfway through. A doll lies in the road, head missing, dress burned. You don't look too closely. It's not your village, not your story. But your stomach turns anyway. There's a myth the old woman tells when she decides to speak. She says the Mongols once trained birds to carry fire. Tied burning oil to their wings, sent them back to their nests. The flames spread from tree to tree, house to house. Historians debate if it's true or just a terrifying bedtime story. Either way, you don't sleep much that night. Every branch above you seems to whisper. You reach a river swollen from spring melt. There's no bridge. The current is strong brown with silt, hiding sharp rocks and worse. A boy barely old enough to shave tries to swim first. You watch him go under, then up, then under again. You never see him come back. Nobody cries. Nobody even says his name. Not because they don't care, but because if they do, the grief might pull them under too. Eventually, someone finds a fallen tree. You inch across it, arms out breath, held heart pounding like it's trying to remember how to be brave. The bark is slick. Your foot slips once. You catch yourself. Just barely. You make it across. Most do. One doesn't. That night you lie awake listening to frogs. Their croaking is strange comfort, a reminder that some things still follow their own rhythms. Not everything bows to war. The frogs croak. The stars blink. The river flows. And still you walk. You pass a monastery half burned, the stone walls blackened but standing. There are bodies in the yard, not fresh. Just bones now picked clean by time and whatever animals survived this long. Inside you find a scroll. Just one. Somehow untouched. You can't read it, but the ink is still dark, the lines sharp. It feels sacred. You don't take it. You're not a thief. Or maybe you are, but even you have lines you won't cross. You do take bread, stale, dry, but bread. The monks are long gone. Funny thing, Mongol rulers often spared monasteries that surrendered immediately. Some even funded them later if they were useful. But surrender isn't always an option, especially when they don't give you time. You leave a pebble beside the scroll like a quiet apology. Then keep walking. Your feet are raw now. You wrap them in cloth, then in grass, then in anything you can find. A strip from your shirt, a bit of someone's cloak they left behind. One night, someone shares a turnip. You chew slowly. It tastes like hope. You meet a soldier, half drunk, wounded but alive. He tells stories in a slur about how his captain thought they could fight on horseback like the Mongols do. Didn't work. We're not them, he mutters before falling asleep against a tree. He never wakes up. You bury him with a stick. There's a superstition someone shares that night. If you say a name while burying a body, the dead might follow you. No one knows the soldier's name, so he stays buried. Your dream's a stranger now. You see smoke that smells like cinnamon, horses with glowing eyes, a city made entirely of whispering statues. You wake with your nails dug into your palms. The next village you reach isn't empty, but it might as well be. The people stare like their souls forgot how to stand up. They don't speak, they don't move. You leave quietly, taking nothing. The old woman says you're 2 days from the castle now. The one from before. The maybe safe one. 2 days. Or 4. Or maybe it's just a story people pass down to keep their legs moving. But even a story is something. You push forward. The group is smaller now. A child has joined a girl with hair like tangled straw and eyes that never blink. She doesn't speak, but she holds your hand. You don't shake her off. You don't speak much either. It's better that way. The air gets colder, nights sharper. You pull your coat tighter. The child curls into you when you sleep. You let her. You remember your sister. Historians argue whether villages like yours disappeared because of the invaders or because the survivors simply gave up trying to remember where they came from. Memory is heavy. You can only carry so much. You keep walking, because walking means maybe, because stopping means the end, and because somewhere just over the next hill, maybe there might be a door that hasn't been burned, a room that smells like soup, a name someone remembers. You walk. Because you're not done yet. By now, you've lost track of the days. You don't know how many sunrises you've seen, or how many nights you've shivered through with your arms wrapped tight around yourself, like they could hold something in. The road has stopped pretending to be a road. It's more suggestion than path. Now muddy in some places, rocky in others, often both. Your boots are long gone, replaced with cloth strips that barely cushion the bruises on your soles. Every step is a choice. You pass another village, if you can call it that. A few half-standing huts, a well clogged with soot, the smell of something long dead lingering in the air. Someone once painted flowers on the shutters. You touch them just for a moment. They flake away like ash. You move on. The child still follows. She doesn't ask questions, doesn't whimper or cling, just walks beside you step for step, as if she's always been there. You wonder if she's even real. Sometimes you speak to her quietly, and she never replies, but her eyes meet yours, calm and steady, like a mirror that sees more than you want to show. One night, you sleep under a tree shaped like a crooked hand. In your dreams, there's a feast. Roasted meat, ripe figs, wine in goblets that never empty. Laughter warm and full. You almost taste it. But when you wake, it's just your hand in your mouth biting down to keep from crying out in hunger. The girl is still asleep beside you, her head resting on your elbow. You let her sleep. You meet a man on the road who claims to be a doctor. He's wearing a chain made of teeth. Human or animal, You don't ask. He offers you a poultice for your cracked feet, and in return, he wants a story. You tell him about the turnip. He laughs like it's the funniest thing he's heard in years. He gives you the poultice anyway. Historians still argue about how accurate medieval medicine really was. Some treatments were shockingly ahead of their time. Others involved leeches, crushed beetles, or worse. The poultice smells like moss and vinegar. It burns. But afterward, your feet feel less like knives and more like dull stones. You call it a victory. You part ways with the doctor when the sky turns orange. He leaves walking backward, muttering blessings in 3 languages. The girl watches him go. You both keep walking. You reach a crossroads marked by a dead tree with 3 birds circling above. They don't land. You pause, looking down both paths. One curves up a hill, dry and steep. The other dips into a forest, dark and humming with insects. You flip a coin. Not because you believe in fate, but because pretending to believe is easier than deciding. The coin lands on heads. You take the forest path. Branches claw at your clothes. The air feels like wet fabric. You pass mushrooms as big as your hands and flowers that pulse when touched. You don't touch them again. The girl steps lightly, her feet silent on the mulch. You envy that. You think of the monastery again, of the scroll you left behind, the pebble, the smell of ink. You wonder if someone else has found it by now, or if it burned like everything else. You stumble into a clearing where a man sits beside a pile of stones. He's building something, a wall maybe, or a grave. You don't ask. He doesn't speak, just offers a piece of dried apple and a shrug. You accept. The apple tastes like dust and memory. The girl eats hers in silence, then hands you the core. You bury it. You walk on. The castle is closer now, they say. You hear it from a group of refugees huddled around a wagon with no wheels. They speak of safety, of walls, of bread ovens that still work. They say the guards are fair, the beds clean the rats, fat but harmless. You try not to hope too loudly. There's a superstition among them that if you dream of fire 3 nights in a row, the castle gates will open for you. You haven't dreamed in days. Or maybe you have, but the dreams don't stay long enough to remember. Just colours sometimes. Just a scent. Just a weight. That night you see fire. Not burning buildings, but torches floating above a river, carried by people with no faces. They move in silence. You wake with the taste of smoke on your tongue. The girl is still there. You keep walking. One of the refugees gives you a piece of string and tells you to tie it around your wrist. So you remember where you came from, he says. You don't know if it works that way, but you tie it anyway. It turns your skin red and itchy, but you leave it on. You pass through a town where the statues have all been beheaded. No one knows why. Or maybe they do, but don't want to talk about it. You stare at a woman cradling a bundle that might be a child or might be bread. It's hard to tell without a head. You whisper thank you anyway. You're not sure who to. The girl touches your hand. You walk on. By morning, your string bracelet is gone. Maybe it fell off. Maybe it was never there. You don't look for it. You count your steps. You count the birds overhead. You count the times your stomach growls and pretend each one is a bell ringing somewhere safe. You keep walking. Because walking still means maybe. By the 5th day or the 50th, it's all the same now. You're no longer walking so much as drifting. Your legs move, but not because you tell them to. They've become creatures of habit, powered by hunger and inertia. Every village you pass looks like the last one, doors hanging by a single hinge window. Shutters flapping like lazy tongues and wells that echo with nothing but rot. You stop checking for water. You already know better. The girl still follows you. You've started calling her Ash, though not aloud. Just in your head. It suits her somehow, quiet, pale, always there after the fire has gone out. She never strays more than a few steps behind, and she never complains. You wish you could remember how you met her, or even when. Maybe she's always been there. Maybe she's part of you. Today the sky is a colour you don't have a word for. Not grey, not blue, not even bruised. Just something worn thin. You try to remember if you've ever seen a sky like this before, but thinking hurts. You let it go. You find a stream that hasn't dried up or turned black. You crouch beside it and drink, your hands trembling in the cold. The water tastes like old coins and leaves. You splash your face and Ash does the same beside you. For a moment, you feel almost clean. Almost. Historians still argue about how widespread famine was during certain medieval sieges. Some records speak of desperation so great that people chewed on leather belts, tree bark, or worse. You believe it. You would chew bark too if the trees hadn't all died. Later, you pass a field of bones. Not piled, not buried, just scattered. Like someone meant to clean up and got distracted halfway through. Some are small. You don't look too long. Ash doesn't either. You keep moving. A man in rags stops you and asks if you've seen a dog with 3 legs and a bell around its neck. You shake your head. He nods solemnly and offers you a crust of bread anyway. You try not to devour it in one bite. Ash eats half and gives the rest back to the man. He weeps. You walk with him for an hour before he veers off toward a ruined orchard. He doesn't say goodbye. You don't expect him to. Your hands have become maps of cracks and blisters. Every time you touch something, a tree, a stone, your own face, it leaves a trace of dirt or blood behind. You wonder if you're becoming part of the land itself, eroding in place. You pass a woman painting on a wall with mud. She draws spirals and sun's fish and strange animals. Her fingers move with purpose, but her eyes are far away. You watch her until she hums, and then you move on. You dream of warmth again. This time it's a hearth, a low fire crackling in a stone room. Someone sings, and someone else stirs a pot that smells like onions and fat. You sit at the edge, just out of reach of the light. When you wake, your hands are wrapped around a cold rock, like it might still be a bowl. Ash sleeps beside you, with her hands over her ears. You find a broken bell tied to a tree branch with string. It rings softly in the wind. You sit beside it for a while, letting the sound wash over you. You think about the dog the man was looking for. You wonder if it ever made it home. In the next village, someone has carved words into every doorframe. You can't read them. Ash can. She runs her fingers across each set of letters like they're braille, her lips moving silently. When she's done, she tugs your sleeve and keeps walking. You don't ask what they said. That night, a storm rolls in, not rain, not wind, just noise. Thunder with no lightning, like the earth is growling in its sleep. You curl into yourself. Ash presses against your back. The sound doesn't stop, even when you cover your ears. When it finally fades, you're not sure if you slept or blacked out. The line blurs. You pass a priest burning old manuscripts in a barrel. Too dangerous, he says. You ask why. He shrugs. They remember too much. You ask if you can keep a page. He gives you one. It's blank. Ash folds it and tucks it into her shirt. You find a spoon on the ground, bent, slightly rusted. You clean it anyway and tie it to your belt like a trophy. It makes a little clink when you walk. You don't hate the sound. Somewhere near noon, or what feels like it, you pass a pile of shoes. Just shoes. No feet, no people. Just 100 pairs, all sizes, neatly stacked. You try on a pair, too tight. You take one of the laces anyway, tie your makeshift sandals tighter. You don't talk much anymore, even in your head. Ash hums a tune you don't recognize. You try to remember music, but the only song that comes is the one from your dream. You hum it back softly. She smiles. You find a bridge that leads nowhere. Half of it has collapsed into a river choked with reeds. You cross it anyway, hopping the gap with a running start. Ash makes it look easy. You feel your first real breeze in days. It smells like smoke, but clean smoke, like someone cooking, not burning. You both follow it. You find a man with a kettle and 3 cups. He pours you something warm. It tastes like bark, but in a good way. He says the castle is real, just ahead, just past the hill with no name. He points. You look. You see nothing but mist. You thank him. He vanishes before you finish your drink. Ash takes your hand for the first time. Her palm is warm. You climb the hill. You don't ask if it has a name, because maybe it's better this way. You crest the hill, expecting to see the castle the kettleman mentioned, but instead there's only fog. It lies heavy and low, curling like smoke over what used to be a valley. It muffles sound swallows light. You take a step forward, and the mist brushes your face cool as cloth soaked in river water. You pause just to listen, but there's no bird song, no voices, not even the wind. Just the sound of your own breath and Ash's small steps beside you. Your stomach growls again, loudly. At this point, it's more a habit than a protest. You reach into your pouch. Nothing. You knew that already, but still you check every time. Like maybe the universe will change its mind and give you something. You hear a bell in the distance, not the soft tinkle of a temple bell or the warning clang of war. This is slower, sadder, almost tired. It comes and goes, echoing through the fog, like it's unsure whether to keep ringing or not. Ash tilts her head toward the sound, and so do you. With nowhere else to go, you walk. Historians debate whether bells were used to signal danger or merely to mark time during medieval sieges. Some say they rang when food was delivered. Others believe they told the hours as a way to keep hope alive. Either way, you think no bell rings for no reason. You pass a wagon stuck in the mud. It's rotted through its wheel, sunk deep as if trying to return to the earth. A child's doll sits on the seat, one eye missing, stitched mouth smiling wide. You don't touch it. Ash doesn't either. Then comes the scent smoke again, but wrong this time. It's heavy and oily, and it sticks to the back of your throat. Your eyes water. You pull your cloak tighter, as if cloth can protect you from memory. Ash wraps hers over her nose and walks on her pace steady. You follow. The fog begins to clear in patches. Here and there, you catch glimpses of stone walls maybe, a jagged spire, a ladder leading to nowhere. Then you see it the castle, or what's left of it, not grand or golden, no banners fluttering, no gleaming towers, just ruins, charred walls, a gate that hangs open like a broken jaw, still its shelter. So you go in. The ground is littered with leaves and bones, chicken, you hope. Someone tried to sweep once. A cracked broom lies near the door, its bristles tangled with straw and string. You pick it up, then put it back. It doesn't matter now. Inside the great hall, if you can still call it that, the ceiling has collapsed, letting in the grey sky. Vines crawl up what's left of the stone columns. A fire pit sits in the centre, blackened and cold. You sit beside it. Ash finds a bit of dry moss and tucks it between 2 stones, like it might catch warmth from the memory of fire. There's a tapestry hanging at the far wall. Torn, mouldy, the thread faded, but you can still make out shapes, a knight holding a sword. A woman in blue robes, a beast with too many eyes. Or maybe it's just stains. Hard to say. You find a spoon again. Not the same one, this one's brass and slightly bent. You give it to Ash, who nods solemnly and adds it to her belt. The clink it makes against her side is oddly comforting. It makes her sound like she matters. You hear the bell again. Closer. It comes from below. You find the stairs' narrow spiral stone worn smooth from centuries of feet. You descend. It's dark and it smells like wet stone and rust. Each step echoes behind you and you can't help but imagine someone following even though you know they're not. Probably. You reach the bottom and there's a cellar door. It creaks when you open it. Of course it does. Inside, the bell is hanging from a rope in the ceiling. It sways gently. No one is there. Or maybe they were. There's a cup, still warm, sitting on a wooden table beside a loaf of bread with a bite taken out of it. You and Ash look at each other, then at the food. You wait a beat, then another. No one comes. You eat it. The bread is dry, but not mouldy. The cup holds something, spiced wine maybe, or water steeped in herbs. Either way, it burns going down, and you welcome the sensation. You lie down beside the hearth. It hasn't been lit in years, but still you lie there. Ash curls up next to you. You don't speak. You dream again. This time you're not in a castle or a field. You're in a room made of light. There's no walls, no roof, just rays of sunlight held together by memory. You see faces you know but can't name. You hear laughter from a mouth you miss. Someone hands you a bowl of soup. It's warm. You wake with tears on your face. Ash doesn't look at you, but she scoots a little closer. Outside, the fog is gone. You step through the castle gates and find the valley open wide and golden with dry grass. The sun finally shows itself pale and unsure, like it forgot how. A breeze brushes your cheek. You close your eyes. You let it carry you. You don't know where you're going. But for the first time in a long time, you don't mind. You walk on. The valley stretches like a painting no one finished. Grass leans in the breeze, but never breaks. A narrow trail winds through the hills, like it knows the way better than you do. So you follow. The morning light isn't warm exactly, but it's enough. After a while, even your bones stop protesting. Ash trots ahead, now cloak flapping like a flag of some forgotten house. She stops occasionally to sniff a bush or stare at something invisible. Her pace keeps you honest. You're too tired to daydream, too awake to sleepwalk. The middle ground, that's where you live now. After a few hours or maybe more, you reach a tree. Just one. A gnarled old thing with bark like dragon scales and roots that wrestle with the earth. Someone's hung a pot from one of the limbs. A copper pot. Empty, but polished. Probably ceremonial, or maybe just forgotten. It swings gently in the breeze, making a sound like a coin dropped in water. You don't touch it. Ash doesn't either. You sit beneath it for a while anyway. Historians still debate the use of lone marker trees like this. Some claim they denoted burial grounds, others say they marked property lines. One popular but unverified theory suggests they were used to tether dreams. Sounds poetic, but not very practical. Still, you like the idea. You eat a handful of weeds, dandelion mostly. Chewy bitter, but edible. Ash gets a snail. She looks smug. You try not to be jealous. In the distance you hear a horn. Low, slow, mournful. You've heard it before in another place. It always sounds the same, like a warning no one listens to. You rise. Time to move again. The trail narrows as it descends into what used to be a village. You can tell by the outlines, stone walls with no roofs, doors with no houses. One chimney still stands looking surprised to find itself alone. There's a wheelbarrow full of dirt. No handles. You walk carefully. Each step kicks up dust that hasn't moved in years. A rooster clucks somewhere, but you never see it. A single boot lies beside a well laces undone. You think about trying it on. You don't. Ash finds a string of beads near a crumbled window. She holds it up to the light. Red stones, glass, or garnet, you can't tell. She ties it around her wrist. It suits her. Inside what must have been a bakery, you find a stone oven half buried in ivy. There's a cracked bowl beside it, and what might once have been dough, or clay, or someone's last attempt at comfort. You sit on a bench that groans under your weight. You and Ash share silence like a crust of bread. You wonder what happened here. War plague relocation. Historians argue endlessly but rarely settle. Sometimes places just stop. You move on. You find a stream just past the village. Thin, but flowing. You kneel to drink and your reflection startles you. Sunken cheeks, wild eyes, dirt in every line. You look like someone you wouldn't trust at a tavern. Ash looks better. Somehow she always does. You follow the stream. It hums like a lullaby with no words. Pebbles glitter beneath the surface, like coins lost in a wish. You pick one up. It's smooth and cold and utterly unimportant. You keep it anyway. Eventually, the stream meets a road. Not a great one, just two parallel ruts worn into the earth. Wagon marks. Centuries old, maybe. Maybe not. You step into one and start walking. It's easier than making your own path. You pass a milestone marker, nothing on it but moss. You pat it once like greeting an old friend. Ash does the same, and you wonder if she's mocking you. You reach a bridge. It sags in the middle like it's tired of holding the world together. You cross one plank at a time, testing each one. Some groan. One cracks. You pause. But it holds. On the other side, a man sits by a fire. He doesn't speak, just nods. You nod back. You don't ask his name. He doesn't ask yours. That's the way of people who've been through enough. He gestures to the fire. You sit. He offers you a skewer, something charred, maybe rat, maybe bird. Doesn't matter. You take it. You eat. It tastes like ash and relief. He asks nothing but hands you a blanket. It's coarse and smells like old wool. You wrap it around your shoulders anyway. The man leans back, closes his eyes. You do the same. Ash curls beside you. The fire pops softly, sending up sparks like tiny stars that forgot how to shine. You dream again. This time you're in a room full of food. Bread, meat, wine, fruit. You reach for it and it never runs out. You wake up chewing air. The man is gone. The fire is gone. Only ash remains. Fitting. You rise, stretch, groan. Your back is not what it used to be. You think about where you're going. But not too hard. The road stretches on. You take your place in it. The sky above you is doing that thing again, where it can't decide if it wants to be blue or grey. There's a pale sun struggling behind the clouds, like it overslept and doesn't want to go to work. You get it. You're here walking this path, still not sure if you're awake or just in another flavour of dream. Ash bounds ahead, her tail flicking like she's chasing something only she can see. Maybe it's a bird. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's just motion for motion's sake. You keep pace, boots crunching against gravel that's been here longer than your bloodline. It all feels ancient in a way that makes your own presence feel negotiable. You find a signpost at a fork in the road. The text is eroded, barely legible. One arm points toward Dunwald. The other reads, 3 days by foot. If you're lucky. Historians still argue whether such humour-laced signs were real or if it's just folklore. Either way, it's accurate. You don't feel lucky, but you turn toward Dunwald. As you go, you start to notice the fencing. Low wooden posts, some bound with rope, others leaning like old men who forgot why they stood up. You pass a scarecrow missing its head. It wears a noble's tunic, faded blue with a crest you don't recognize. Probably stolen. Probably from someone who doesn't need it anymore. Quirky fact: during long sieges, people dressed scarecrows to resemble the nobility to scare off looters. It didn't work. The land flattens for a while. You spot a crow following you from post to post. Not flying, just hopping. Bold thing. Ash watches it with interest but doesn't chase. Even she knows there's a code to these things. Eventually the fencing ends and the open field begins. Just grass and low hills and that particular emptiness that hums. You start counting your steps to stay focused 1, 2, 3 until you realize you've lost count. Again, story of your life, attention span like a moth with a headache. You pass a shrine, nothing grand, just a pile of stones with a tiny wooden idol atop. It's missing an eye, but someone's tied a fresh ribbon around its waist. Orange silk. You wonder who did that, why, what they hoped it would do. You bow your head just a little. No harm in small courtesies. Then come the ruins. Not dramatic ruins. No fallen towers or statues with broken swords. Just the outline of something that used to be something. A line of stone where a house once stood. An iron ring embedded in the ground, maybe for tethering horses or prisoners or bad ideas. Moss grows like memory here, slow, soft, selective. You sit on a stone slab and let your shoulders drop. For a moment, it feels like rest. Ash climbs up beside you and watches the horizon. She's been quiet lately. You think she's listening for something you can't hear. You reach into your pack. You've got half a hard biscuit, 2 cloves of garlic, a tiny cloth pouch of salt, and a pebble you picked up 4 days ago because it looked like a face. The biscuit tastes like regret and determination. The garlic will keep ghosts away or friends. Either works. A breeze picks up, and for a second, you catch the scent of something strange. Smoke, maybe, or rosemary, or both. You sniff again, but it's gone. Like most things in your life, it doesn't stick around long enough to explain itself. You move again, legs stiff from sitting too long. The next part of the path hugs the base of a low ridge. Sharp stones peek through the dirt, like bones in a shallow grave. You try not to trip. You fail once. No witnesses. Ash pretends not to see. You find a cave. Small, narrow, almost polite in how it waits for you. You duck in just to see. Its cool, damp smells like forgotten time. Someone scratched tally marks into the wall. Dozens, maybe hundreds. You run your fingers along them. They feel desperate. You don't stay long. Back on the path, you pass a patch of blue flowers, small, star-shaped, defiant. Folklore says they only grow where someone once fell in love and died in the same place. Sweet, morbid, classic. Ash sneezes. You smile. Ahead, a shape breaks the landscape. A building, no two. Huts, maybe. With smoke, yes. Thin trails, real ones. Not memory or imagination. You pick up pace. Not too fast. You don't want to look desperate. You reach a clearing with 2 crooked cottages and a well between them. One door opens slowly. An old woman peers out. Her face is a map of every season. She squints, waves a hand, and goes back inside. That's the medieval welcome. No banners, no speeches. Just I saw you. I acknowledge your existence. Don't touch my goats. A younger man appears a moment later. He offers you water, a slice of turnip, a warning to watch for wolves. You nod, drink, thank him. say little. It's enough. They offer a place to rest for the night in the lean-to beside their goats. You accept. Ash curls beside you in the hay, her breathing slow and deep. Outside, the wind moves through the trees, like it's looking for something it lost. You lie down. The stars above wink like they're in on a joke you don't get. That's fine. You're used to it. You drift. You never see the first tax collector arrive. He's just there one morning, sitting calmly on the ruins of what used to be your neighbour's granary, sharpening a stick into a writing stylus. His horse, a well-fed and decorated thing, with eyes that seem smug, grazes nearby like it owns the whole valley. You know immediately that the man is Mongol, not just from the way he dresses, but from the way he doesn't blink when he looks at you like he's already counted your teeth and decided you're not a threat. He doesn't speak your language, but he doesn't need to. He points at your hut. Then he points at your goats. Then he holds up 3 fingers, which you somehow know isn't a number, it's a demand. You give him the 3 best things you own without argument. He nods and leaves. That's your introduction to the new economy. Under the Mongol Empire, everything is documented. That's the funny thing, historians still argue whether the Mongol taxation system was brutally oppressive or strangely efficient. Either way, it's consistent. Every month the man comes back. Sometimes it's him, sometimes it's another. They all ride fine horses. They all expect payment in livestock grain or labour. There's no negotiation. There's no discussion. There's no smiling either. What's surreal is how organised it is. They know who you are, or who you used to be. One time they call your father's name. Another time they hand you a scroll with your village's name written in symbols you can't read. Your people used to trade stories by firelight. The Mongols trade ledgers. Everything you do becomes a number. And what's worse, you adjust. That's the part no one talks about in the legends. You begin to measure time not by seasons or saints' days, but by tax visits. You mark the calendar in scratches behind your door, small ticks, 1 for each day closer to giving away more than you have. It becomes routine, almost boring in its cruelty. You start to recognize the patterns. The collectors never come when the ground is too muddy. They hate getting their boots dirty. They prefer early mornings. They often arrive in odd numbers, rarely in pairs. You notice one collector always hums to himself a song with no words that drills into your dreams. You think about asking him what it means, but you don't speak his language. Maybe it's better that way. Once you try hiding a sack of millet behind your chicken coop, the taxman finds it before he even knocks. He doesn't say a word, just stares at you, then at your hands, then at the sky, and walks away with the sack. That silence is worse than a beating. The strangest part, there's a weird kind of fairness to it all. They don't take everything, just enough. Just enough to make you resent them, but not enough to make rebellion worth the risk. The Mongols didn't build their empire by being stupid. They built it by knowing the exact breaking point of the human spirit and dancing right up to it, then backing away. One day, someone in your village jokes quietly that maybe it's better than the old king's taxes. You all laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's dangerous. Laughter feels like rebellion now, and rebellion feels like something you remember from a dream you didn't want to wake up from. You hear from a man passing through that there's a chart now, some imperial scroll that says exactly what each village owes and what each person is worth. You wonder what your line looks like, what symbol they use for your name, what number they've attached to your breath. You wish you could say it hardens you, that you grow strong under pressure. That's not really how it works. What happens instead is this: you become smaller. You learn how to take up less space. You step lighter, you speak less. You become part of the scenery, just another shape for the taxman to tally. One evening after they've left, you find a dropped coin near your gate, not one of yours, one of theirs. Silver heavy, stamped with a face you don't recognize, and writing that loops like vines. You think about keeping it, then you think about them noticing. You toss it into the well and don't speak of it again. Still, there's something oddly comforting in the routine. At least it means someone knows you exist, that you matter, even if only as a source of grain and livestock. You start preparing for the visits, like rituals, sweeping the yard, washing your face, standing a little straighter, like a peasant version of nobility. You don't want to give them pride, but you also don't want to look broken. Historians often romanticize the resilience of villages like yours. They write about strength, tradition, and endurance. But if you could talk to them, you'd tell them the truth. It wasn't strength. It was the absence of options. It wasn't pride. It was exhaustion. You didn't endure because you were brave. You endured because nobody offered you a way out. And even now, as the sun sets and the hills turn to shadows, you're not really free. You're just between collections. You look out across your fields, less yours now than ever, and think maybe next time you'll give them the old goat instead of the young one. Maybe you'll fix that roof beam. Maybe you'll plant something new. Maybe. But you've learned not to hope too loudly. There's a smell in the air now. Not just wood smoke or manure, the familiar scents of your village, but something sharper, sourer, like rust soaked into cloth. It clings to your clothes, your skin, the inside of your nose. You've started dreaming in that smell. Metallic, damp. It's the scent of soldiers. They've come again. Not tacksmen this time, but the kind who wear armour stitched with leather thongs and ride horses that don't flinch at fire. These ones are different. They don't ask for grain. They don't hold up fingers. They just show up and look at your sons. Then they nod, and your sons follow. That's conscription under the Mongols. If you can hold a spear, you belong to the horde. If you can ride, you're already late. There's no ceremony, no training, just a whistle, a grunt, a nod. And they're gone. One of your boys doesn't even say goodbye. You're not sure if it was bravery or fear. Historians still debate whether conscription was enforced evenly or strategically focused on certain areas. Some say whole regions were emptied, others argue it was more like a draft lottery. In your case, it just feels like theft. The kind no one calls a crime because the thief wrote the laws. It's strange, this quiet afterward. The empty seat at the fire. The missing cough in the morning. You don't cry, crying is loud, and nothing feels safe enough to be loud anymore. But your chest feels like it's been tied shut with twine. Tight. Heavy. The days pass with one less shadow in the doorway. One less bowl to fill, and it's like your house is forgetting how to be full. Your youngest starts practicing with a stick, copying the riders. He gallops on foot across the yard, makes the whooping noises he's heard from the real warriors, and shouts imaginary orders to the chickens. You want to tell him to stop. You want to snatch the stick away and tell him never to play at something that can become real so quickly, but you don't. Because if the soldiers return, and they will, maybe he'll stand straighter, maybe that will help. You begin to notice who's left behind. The old, the sick, the very young, and the women, of course. Your village shifts, voices change rhythms slow. There's no longer the low thump of training or the clang of sharpening blades. Instead, you hear weaving looms, quiet prayers, coughing. It's like living in the pause between storms. The Mongols, it's said, kept track of their conscripts well. Some were trained to be archers. others runners or engineers. You hope your boys were given horses. Horses mean distance, and you convince yourself that distance means safety. But deep down, you know that in Mongol, warfare speed just gets you to the danger faster. Once a letter arrives, or something that looks like one, a sealed roll of thin bark pressed into your hands by a courier who doesn't stop walking. You don't recognize the symbols, but you keep it. You press it to your chest every night the way your mother used to press amulets to hers. It doesn't bring peace, but it gives you something to do with your hands. You talk to the other parents, quietly, at night, whispers. No one says what they're really feeling. There are no tears, no wailing, just questions. Have you heard anything? Do they feed them? Did your son know how to fight? Does anyone ever come back? The answer is sometimes. One boy limps into town weeks later, face changed, legs uneven. He doesn't say much, just looks at things like he's seeing them from a distance. People treat him gently like a cracked vase. He eats alone, sleeps with a knife. Then one morning he's gone again. Maybe he left. Maybe he was taken. No one asks. You learn not to hope too much. Hope is a crack in the wall, and cracks let wind in. You patch your hope like you patch your roof with mud and quietness. One night you dream that your sons come home, but they're taller, older, wearing Mongol armor. They speak a language you don't understand. They smile at you, but it's not the smile you remember. You wake with your throat tight and fingers curled like claws around your blanket. A scholar once wrote that the Mongol Empire allowed for unprecedented cultural exchange, that soldiers learned languages and customs from lands they'd never imagined. You wonder if your sons are speaking Persian now, or Chinese, or just silence. You pass the days differently now. You tend to the goats like they're made of glass. You fix the roof even if it doesn't need fixing. You talk to your house under your breath. The other villagers start doing the same. Not prayers exactly, just words. To remind yourselves you're still here. Sometimes you think about leaving, walking until the horizon stops, starting over somewhere they don't come with scrolls or horses or armor. But the thing about conquest is that it doesn't leave you many directions. And the world under Mongol control is very large, very organized, and very much not yours. Still, life continues. That's what people forget. History makes it seem like everything stopped during the invasions, like the world froze in fear. But you still plant seeds, still sweep the floor, still wait for bread to rise. You even laugh sometimes, though it catches in your throat like a splinter. You keep their names alive in your mind. Repeat them before you sleep. Not just your sons, everyone who's gone. Like a litany, like a spell. You believe no. You need to believe that saying their names keeps them from fading completely. Because the real fear is not that they'll die. The real fear is that they'll vanish. You find the rhythm of surviving without realizing it. At first, the mornings feel like puzzles. Where does the firewood come from now? Who milks the goats? How do you carry that much water without dropping your back into a ditch? But weeks pass, and the chaos hardens into routine. A slower one, yes, but a rhythm nonetheless. Your body adapts even if your mind doesn't agree, even if your soul is still playing a game of catch-up. You're not alone in this. The other villagers are finding their own patterns, their own small victories. A child learns to knead dough without squashing it. An old woman begins collecting herbs again even if she can't remember all their names. A group of men too injured or too clever to be conscripted Repair the village fence with mismatched wood. It looks ridiculous. You call it beautiful. Historians still argue whether the post-conquest stability Mongols imposed helped local communities recover more quickly. Some say trade routes opened, others insist fear kept things too fragile to thrive. You're living proof that both might be true. The roads are safer now, but only for those who know how to walk with their heads low and questions locked behind their teeth. One morning, a stranger arrives. Not a soldier, not a raider, a merchant of all things, with a cart full of copper trinkets, dried plums, and folded silks that look absurd against the mud. You're not sure if it's a trick or a miracle, but he smiles with all his teeth and speaks 3 languages, maybe 4. You don't buy anything, you have nothing to trade, but you linger. You let yourself look. You let your hands brush the fabric just to feel something that soft. He tells stories, not about war, about cities. Great ones, some ruled by Mongols now. Streets wider than rivers. Towers made of stone markets with fruits you've never heard of. You listen because it's a reminder that the world still exists beyond your village. That it's not just smoke and shouting and loss. He leaves the next day, and it's like the sun has dimmed by 1 candle's worth. But he leaves something behind, a rumor, a whisper that things are changing again. That Kublai Khan is building something called a dynasty. That not all Mongols ride anymore. Some rule from palaces, read books, drink tea like it's an art form. Your mind can't quite picture that. Mongols in silk robes, holding scrolls, writing poems. It's like trying to imagine your goats learning to paint, but you file it away. Another strange truth the world might one day confirm. Then there's the night the wolves return. It starts with the hens gone, feathers scattered like a festival of white despair. Then a goat, then 2. You find a set of paw prints the size of bowls pressed deep into the wet ground. You thought you were done fearing teeth. You were wrong. The villagers rally in a way that surprises you. No panic, just action. Traps are set. Fires are built higher. A watch rotation is arranged clumsily but earnestly. You take your turn wrapped in every scrap of warmth you own, staring into the dark like it owes you something. One night as you watch, you think you see a pair of eyes in the distance. Yellow. Too still to be a trick. But they blink and vanish. You don't tell anyone. Part of you wants to believe the wolves respect you now. That they've seen your scars and decided you're kin. A fringe detail you recall: the Mongols were known to sometimes tame wolves, use them as scouts even. Historians debate whether this was true or just fear-induced legend. But when you see those eyes, part of you wonders. The days blur again, not from pain now, but from repetition. You wake, you work, you sleep, you wake, you work, you sleep. And slowly, imperceptibly, the village knits itself back together. The boy who used to gallop like a horse stops. He builds things now. Traps, baskets, dreams. He still glances at the road sometimes, but he doesn't chase shadows anymore. You begin to sing again, quietly, only when no one's around. The same lullabies your mother used. They don't comfort you so much as remind you what comfort used to sound like distant thunder, soft but real. Then one day, news arrives. It's not shouted, not brought by horse, just passed from ear to ear like steam curling from a hot bowl. The Khan is dead, someone says, or sick, or meditating in a cave, depending on the teller. No one knows what comes next. No one knows if there's a next. But it's a shift, a hinge in the door of history. Historians agree that the death of a Khan often caused ripples across the empire power struggles, splintering factions, rebellions. But here in your village, it just means waiting again, wondering again, bracing again. Because if the Mongols fracture, others might come. Or worse, someone worse than the Mongols. You look at the road, it has seen too much. Feet, hooves, blood, smoke, and now, quiet. A child is born that week, not yours, but you help with the fire, with boiling the water, with cleaning the cloth. The baby wails like the sky falling, and everyone laughs, even you, because the world must still be turning if lungs can scream that loud. The mother names the child Temur. You recognize the name. A warrior's name, a prince's name. You think it's brave, or foolish, or both. That night as you lie in your corner under the thatch and wool, you think about the merchant's silks, the wolf's eyes, your son's laughter before he marched away. You think about the letter you still keep hidden unread, and for the first time in a long time, you let yourself picture something tomorrow-ish. Not a grand future, just a morning without dread. A sky that means weather, not omen. A bowl of soup that stays full long enough to share. The world is still cruel, still loud, still built on the backs of people like you. But there are cracks in the cruelty now. Little fractures, like sunlight through worn cloth. You're not ready to hope, not yet, but you're ready to remember how. The season changes again, though you almost miss it. There's no festival to mark it, no calendar nailed to a wall. Just different birds in the trees, different aches in your joints, a different way. The wind smells when it runs over the river, the wheat. What little of it remains ripens, and that's as good a sign as any. You bend your body to the harvest like it's an old argument, one you've learned not to win, just to endure. No invaders this time, no taxes, no soldiers, just the weight of rebuilding, just the endless parade of tasks that don't care if you're tired. That's what they don't tell you about peace. It can be just as exhausting as war, just quieter. There's a day when you find yourself mending your own shirt instead of bartering for a scrap. A hole worn through the elbow, nothing dramatic. But your fingers remember the stitches, the loop and pull. You hum while you work and only realize it afterward. The tune is nonsense, or maybe ancient. You can't remember, but it lingers. A new trader shows up. Not the first one, not the last. He has coins from the Yuan dynasty, now shiny and strange. Square holes in the middle. You hold one in your hand and try to decide if it's ugly or clever. You don't buy anything, but you keep the coin. For luck, for weight, for memory. Historians agree that Mongol rule helped unify currency and standardize trade routes across vast distances. You wonder if they also standardized grief. One night, someone in the village finds an old Mongol arrow buried in a tree. They bring it to the communal fire like a trophy, but no one celebrates. You all just stare. It's not fear anymore. It's weariness. The way you might look at a torn boot you wore during a storm that never ended. There's a young man barely old enough to shave who starts asking questions. About the war, about the raiders, about what it was like when the soldiers came. He wasn't there, you realize. He was too young, tucked away behind walls, or sent off to a cousin's farm. You envy him, and resent him, and protect him. Historians still debate whether Mongol tolerance for local religions and customs was genuine, or simply pragmatic. The boy asks if they prayed like you do. You don't know. You say yes anyway. Let him believe in similarities. It's softer than dividing lines. You visit the graves again, just for a moment, just to place your hands on the dirt. It's dry now, cracked in places. A beetle crawls by your fingers and doesn't notice you. Or maybe it does. Maybe it nods. You're part of the ground now too in some small way. The merchant had said there were great cities being built, libraries, gardens, bridges like stone rainbows. You try to imagine them, not just the cities but the people walking through them. Do they think of villages like yours, of the smoke that made those cities possible? Another quiet joke, the Mongol postal system. The Yam was one of the most efficient communication networks of the time. You imagine your village getting mail, postcards. Wish you were here, sorry about the siege. The well dries up a little, so you dig deeper. It takes days, then weeks. Your back screams, your palms blister. But finally, there's a trickle, then more. You cup your hands into the mud and drink without shame. It tastes like clay and triumph. A goat gives birth. Twins. Wobbly and loud and far too interested in your boots. You laugh. You don't mean to. It just escapes. And then someone else laughs. And suddenly, there's a whole conversation happening through chuckles and wheezes. It doesn't last long, but it arrives. And that's enough. At night, the stars seem brighter. You don't know if they really are. Maybe the air's clearer. Maybe your eyes are changing. Or maybe the world just knows you've started looking up again. A child draws something in the dirt. It's not a house, not a tree. You ask what it is. A tower, she says, like in the stories. You nod, pretending to understand. But something inside you stretches at the thought. A tower? Why not? There's a girl who starts writing, scratches letters on bark, practices on stone. Her uncle taught her the shapes. Now she teaches others. They use ash and sticks and fingers. The village gets its first words in a long time, not spoken, carved, shared. A strange fact, some Mongol leaders supported education deeply, even building schools and translating texts. You think about that. How a man could swing a sword one day and fund a library the next. Humans are contradictory like that. You've learned to stop expecting logic from survival. You find yourself standing on the road again, watching it stretch out into somewhere. You don't want to leave, not anymore. But you like knowing the road is still there, that it doesn't end in fire. One morning, the boy who asked questions comes to you with a piece of iron. He wants to make a tool. You help him. You don't say much. Just show him how to heat it, bend it, cool it right. The hiss of steam feels like punctuation, like a sentence you forgot you were writing. You think about the Khan again, or what's left of him. The empire he built is probably splintering now, being chopped up, passed around, renamed. But that's the way of things. Even shadows fade. A festival begins, small, local, nothing fancy. But there's food, laughter, music played on a pipe that's slightly out of tune. You dance once, badly. Someone says you move like a wounded duck. You take it as a compliment. A new child is born. Another one. That makes 3 this season. You help again. It's becoming a ritual. The midwife gives you a nod you don't quite understand, but it stays with you. There's talk of sending someone to the next village, of reconnecting, of news. You offer to go, not because you're brave, not because you miss the world, but because your legs remember how to walk, and your heart wants to test its rhythm against a different wind. You pack light, bread, a knife, that coin with the square hole. As you leave, someone calls your name, not loudly, not urgently, just enough to say, "We'll be here," and you nod. The road feels gentler under your feet this time. The first few miles out of the village are slow, deliberate, like your body needs convincing that it's really happening. You're not fleeing this time, not chasing or being chased, just walking. The road, familiar in its texture and smell, is dappled with dust, hoofprints and the soft green fringes of late grass daring to grow again. You step over a crushed beetle, then a broken twig, then a blackened patch of earth that looks too round to be accidental. There are rumours, of course, always are. Some say new warlords are rising in the west. Others claim peace is settling in like moss slowly but firmly. You meet a man with a mule and 1,000 stories. He tells you the Mongols are pulling back from some regions, settling into others. A mosaic of conquest becoming a patchwork of bureaucracy. You nod along, not because you believe everything, but because his voice is soothing, like listening to the rain drum on a thatched roof. The topic of taxes comes up. It always does. Historians agree the Mongols implemented surprisingly efficient tax systems through appointed administrators. You recall a time when taxes were demanded with swords instead of scrolls. Still, the weight feels the same whether it's gold or grain, or your own back offered to lift something for someone richer. At a stream, you wash your face. The water is colder than expected, the kind of cold that wakes up old fears. A frog hops away from you, like it's offended by your presence. You sit for a while, chewing the bread you packed. It's dry and bland, but it's yours, and that's more than could be said during those early years after the invasion. A woman passes you by later carrying herbs and 2 fat bundles wrapped in cloth. She doesn't speak much, just eyes you nods, then offers a fig. It's sweet and warm, like it was tucked close to her skin. You thank her with your mouth full, and she smirks, amused that you still know how to enjoy a surprise. Later you stop by a shrine, not one you know. The figure carved into the wood could be a local spirit, a foreign deity, or just a well-meaning guess. People have left flowers, coins, feathers. You add the coin with the square hole, hesitating only a second. A token of thanks, of survival, of hope. Historians still debate whether the Mongol tolerance for religious diversity was sincere respect or strategic manipulation. You choose to believe it doesn't matter. What matters is that in a world torn by fire, someone still plants marigolds next to a god they only half understand. The next village is smaller than yours, tucked into a slope with goats that eye you like you owe them an apology. A boy leads you to the elder's hut. You sit. You speak. You share news trade rumours. The elder nods slowly at everything, his eyes pale but alert. You're not sure if he's listening or just watching your lips move. But when you hand him the letter, scrawled by your village's new writer, the girl with the clever fingers, he smiles. A real smile. One that folds into the lines of his face, like it was always meant to be there. He asks about your village. You tell him still standing, mostly mended, growing by the week. He grunts in approval. Then he tells you about his own loss, 2 grandsons, 1 daughter. Taken during a raid. Years ago now, but the words still tremble like they were pulled out raw. You don't know what to say, so you just sit. That's enough. That night, they offer you a blanket and a spot near the fire. A woman plays a reed instrument so softly, you almost think you're imagining it. The notes wind through the dark like fireflies that don't need to be chased. You dream of horses, not charging, not burning, just standing, grazing. Their tails flick lazily and one nudges your arm as if asking for something you've forgotten how to give. In the morning, you help a boy chase chickens into a pen. He laughs when you trip and you pretend to scold him. It's a game. It feels real. You almost forget why you came. But it's time to return. On the way back, you walk a little faster. Not because you're eager, not exactly. But because the sky is clear and your legs are strong and the road somehow seems shorter than it was, you meet another traveler. He's older than you by a decade, maybe two, carries a spear but walks like it's ceremonial. You ask if he fought. He nods, then shrugs. We all did, he says. Even the ones who just ran. You travel together a while sharing dried fruit and thoughts too vague to be called memories. He talks about a Mongol officer who spared his village in exchange for maps. You talk about the price of rebuilding a wall with hands that still shake. Neither of you claims to understand why some lived and some didn't. A scholarly tidbit, you remember some Mongol divisions relied heavily on local collaborators to navigate terrain and customs. You wonder how many maps were drawn with trembling fingers. You wonder if survival ever felt like betrayal. The man leaves the road to follow a trail. You part without ceremony. Just a raised hand, a half smile, a mutual understanding that not every goodbye needs words. When you reach your village, it feels smaller, but fuller. Someone painted the shutters on the meeting hall. A dog you don't recognize barks like it owns the place. Children chase each other through patches of green that weren't there before. You're greeted without fanfare, just nods, smiles. One child runs up and pokes your side, giggling when you flinch. You ruffle his hair and pretend not to tear up. The girl who writes asks about the road. You tell her it curves. She writes that down. Later, you see it scratched into the wall near the meeting fire. The road curves, so we keep walking. It becomes a kind of motto, not poetic, but real. There's soup waiting for you, thin, salty, warm. You sit with others and eat in silence except for the occasional grunt or slurp or laughter from across the table. It's not feasting, but it's community. The fire burns lower. Someone adds wood. Someone else starts humming. You lean back, stare into the flames and feel your body relax one muscle at a time. You're home again, and this time there's no waiting for footsteps in the dark. The days begin to blur in the best possible way. Mornings with mist curling through the grass. Evenings with voices echoing around the central fire. No alarms, no horns, no panic. You rise because your body wakes you, not because anyone shouted. You eat because you're hungry, not because it might be your last meal for days. And every now and then, you catch yourself smiling at something stupid, like a chicken slipping on a wet stone or a toddler trying to eat a beetle. Still, there's work. Always is. You patch roofs with clay and branches, mend a fence that refuses to stay upright, help rebuild the grain store that collapsed during the last rain. The tasks are repetitive and simple, and in a strange way comforting. Predictability is a luxury you never thought you'd crave, but here you are, relishing the rhythm of chores. Historians often marvel at how swiftly some communities return to agricultural routines after destruction, not because they forgot, but because forgetting wasn't an option. Crops still needed sowing. Goats still needed milking. If anything, the memory of loss made the routine more sacred. You spend time with the older villagers now, the ones who didn't flee, the ones who hid and stayed. They tell stories with long pauses, sometimes stopping mid-sentence to let the fire crackle in the gap. You listen with the patience of someone who has learned how long grief can echo. One woman claims she outstared a Mongol horse and lived to tell about it. You believe her because she speaks like someone who knows the color of fear and the shape of silence. At night, you hear laughter more often than crying. That feels like progress. A boy plays a bone flute by the well, and it's off-key, but nobody complains. Someone bakes flatbread and forgets the salt, and it becomes the running joke of the week. At least it's not scorched earth, someone quips. You almost spit your soup. Scholars still argue whether music and communal games were acts of rebellion or survival mechanisms. You decide it can be both. What's a rebellion, if not refusing to be permanently broken? You find your hands are steadier now. No more spilling water when you carry a pail. No more trembling when someone calls your name unexpectedly. A little boy falls while climbing a tree and you run to him without hesitation. Just bark scraped knees. You clean him up and he grins like you saved the world. Maybe for him you did. You carve a small wooden bird in the evenings, not because it has meaning, but because the repetition helps you think, or not think. Either way, it works. The bird takes shape slowly, uneven wings, one eye larger than the other, but it's yours. When it's done, you place it on the windowsill of the new schoolhouse. The kids name it Lucky. You don't correct them. A detail from a dusty scroll flashes in your mind. Some Mongol generals believed certain birds brought omens, both good and ill. Maybe your lopsided bird is a tiny wooden prophecy. Maybe it's just a bird. Doesn't matter. One evening, a merchant caravan passes through. Camels bells the scent of cardamom and stories. You trade a spool of thread and 2 carved buttons for dried apricots and a bolt of blue fabric. They speak of distant cities rebuilding, others still burning. News of shifting allegiances, a Khan's nephew raising a new banner. You absorb it all, but let none of it take root. They move on, you stay. That night, someone wraps the blue fabric around a newborn like it's royal silk. You don't think you've ever seen something more hopeful. Your days begin to form a pattern. Wake, work, eat, listen, rest, listen, repeat. Occasionally, you catch yourself wondering if it's safe to feel safe. And then you look around, the laughter, the smoke from chimneys, the lazy dogs stretched in the sun, and you decide it might be. But it's not just comfort you feel. It's responsibility. You start checking the grain store without being asked, fixing tools before they break, teaching the older kids how to tie knots, how to spot edible roots. No one asked you to become a guardian. It just happened. You remember when that role belonged to someone else, someone who didn't come back. Historians document these anonymous replacements, how communities unconsciously redistribute strength. They don't always note how personal it feels, like you're borrowing someone else's boots and trying not to trip. One day, a girl from the village runs to you wide-eyed and breathless. A rider has arrived. Not Mongol, not local. A courier from a nearby region carrying word of peace treaties and new trade roads. A fragile peace, still unsigned. But the message is clear. The empire is shifting, not crumbling, just breathing differently. You gather with others around the fire to hear the words repeated. Peace is a rumor, but it's a better rumor than most. Still, you stay cautious. You double-check the storage pits, recount the animals, sharpen tools, not because you expect a fight, but because sharp tools harvest better. That's what you tell yourself. The girl who writes records everything. Names, dates, weather patterns, even jokes. You help her bind the pages together with twine and goat hide. She calls it the Book of After. You think that's perfect. One afternoon, you walk to the edge of the village. The fields stretch far now, planted with cautious hope. You spot a hawk circling, and for a moment your heart skips. But it's just a hawk. Wings spread like a banner of freedom. You watch it glide until your neck aches. A scholarly tidbit once noted hawks as symbols of divine authority in multiple cultures, sometimes fearsome, sometimes sacred. You wonder what the hawk thinks of you. Probably nothing. You head back. The sun lowers. A child runs up asking if you can teach her to carve. You agree. You start with a stick, soft and narrow, explaining where to hold the knife, how to angle the blade. Her fingers are clumsy, but eager. You smile. The bird you once carved perches nearby, a silent mascot to this new beginning. Dinner is lentils and onions. Simple, satisfying. Someone sings a tune about rain falling on tin, even though nobody here owns tin. Doesn't matter. The song has rhythm. People tap along. You end the day sitting under a tree. No fire, just stars. The air is cool. You tilt your head back, let your thoughts drift like smoke. You survived, but more than that, you stayed. And in staying, you became something new. Not the hero, not the victim, just the one who kept walking, kept listening, kept making room for what might come next. You dream less about flames now. The nightmares once regular visitors have taken to skipping nights entirely replaced by dreams of faces you've come to recognize, laughing kids. A woman with a lopsided braid who always burns her bread, a one-eyed dog that insists on sleeping under your chair. If the Mongol tide once drowned everything, then this quiet village has become a tiny raft bobbing stubbornly in the aftermath. You wake slowly, not startled, and stretch beneath the rough blanket that somehow became comfortable. The morning air bites a little, but it's no longer the kind of cold that makes your bones flinch. Just enough chill to remind you you're alive. You rise, toss on your patched tunic, and check your feet, no swelling, no sores. A small blessing. No one talks much at dawn here. People nod. They smile. Someone always starts boiling water. Your first task is to fix the roof of the communal storehouse again. The clay tiles were never meant to last, especially under rain and the occasional hail. You set to work with a boy no older than 13, who hums a tune while handing you bundles of reeds. He doesn't ask about the past, just talks about birds and which ones eat which bugs. You nod along and let him keep talking. His voice fills the quiet. Historians still debate how small communities re-established intergenerational trust after trauma. Some argue that routines did the healing. Others think children simply decided not to inherit their parents' fear. You figure it's both, and also something nobody will ever be able to measure. At midday, a woman offers you a cup of sour milk. You accept it because the last time you refused, she made you eat 2 helpings of boiled roots as punishment. She's stern like that. There's a quiet affection here that you wouldn't have recognized a year ago. Not loud, not performative, just consistent. That's what holds the village together now, consistency. Everyone wakes, everyone eats, everyone does something useful. It's not dramatic and it's not efficient, but it's enough. You spend the afternoon helping prepare a feast. Not a celebration exactly, just an acknowledgement. 1 year since the last smoke rose on the horizon. 1 year without losing someone to the dark. That feels worth stewing some lentils over. You stir pots and slice onions, tear up at both, and someone hands you a cloth like they expected it. They probably did. One of the elders insists on giving a speech. He's missing 2 teeth and half a finger, and you're pretty sure he's forgotten your name more than once. But his voice is clear, and when he says we are still here, no one looks away. You learn later that this phrase shows up in at least 7 post-conflict oral traditions. A linguistic root that keeps cropping up like wild herbs. Still here, still here, still here. The meal is simple. Bread beans, dried fruit. But the flavors are stronger when shared. You laugh more than you speak. One child nearly swallows a date pit and pretends to die dramatically. The table erupts in giggles. For a moment, the memory of war seems like someone else's story. But night always brings echoes. You find yourself walking to the edge of the village again. Old habits. Checking for shadows that aren't there. Listening for hooves that never come. A full moon paints the fields in silver, and everything feels temporarily suspended, like the land is holding its breath. You sit beneath your usual tree and take out a piece of wood you've been carving. Another bird. This one is sleeker. The wings curve just so. Progress. You smile and wonder if it means anything that you keep making birds. Maybe it's your way of proving something can still fly. A scholar once argued that post-trauma art is filled with impossible animals. Creatures that can't exist but should. You don't think your birds are impossible, just hopeful. The wind shifts and you hear a song being hummed from somewhere nearby. You don't recognize it, but it feels familiar. A rhythm that nestles into your ribs like a heartbeat you forgot you had. You hum along, not trying to match the tune, just staying close to it. You realize that's how most people here live now. Not trying to forget, just trying to stay close to what still feels true. You eventually drift back to your sleeping spot. No roof, just stars and your blanket. It's not ideal, but you've come to like the sky being that close. Some people pray before sleep. Some people count goats. You trace constellations and name them after vegetables, the great carrot, the leek of destiny, turnip's revenge. It keeps your mind busy just long enough for your body to settle. Sleep comes soft. Not like before when it grabbed you like a trap. Now it arrives like a friend who doesn't need to knock. And when you wake again, the sun's already up and someone's yelling about the goat getting into the onions. The morning rush begins not frantic, just enthusiastic. You're pulled into helping repair a cartwheel, which feels suspiciously like punishment for laughing at the goat. You don't mind. You're becoming quite good at fixing things. Not just carts. People ask you things now, how to patch cloth, how to lift heavy beams without breaking a back. You're not an expert, but you've been around long enough to seem like one. A few travellers arrive during the midday break, tired, sunburned, offering salt and gossip. They speak of bandits returning to the hills of trade roads, opening under new flags. Someone even claims a Mongol prince was seen blessing a well in a far-off village. Historians will never agree whether that was real one-traveller jokes. You laugh harder than you should. You trade for a roll of ink-dyed linen and 2 small spools of thread. You've been meaning to make a shirt, or at least something that resembles one. The villagers cheer your efforts. The final result has crooked seams and a collar that insists on pointing backward, but you wear it anyway. Fashion is subjective, you declare, and somehow that becomes the saying of the month. By evening, you're back at the fire. Someone plays a drum made of stretched hide. A girl dances not well but joyfully, and people clap along in chaotic rhythm. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. You stare into the flames and remember a time when fire only meant danger. Now it means warmth food stories and stolen glances between people learning to love again. You think that's worth noting. You decide to write something down even if no one reads it. A single sentence. We laughed again. You fold the paper and tuck it into the pouch with your bird carvings. You sleep later that night, warmed by fire and laughter. The dog snores beside you. The stars blink. The world feels like it might actually spin towards something better. The season turns without ceremony. No trumpet blares, no sudden thunderclap. Just the quiet shift of morning wind and the scent of damp earth after a week drizzle. You notice the change in how your breath fogs less in the early hours, how the goats wander further before bleating to be herded back. The village doesn't celebrate the turning, it just adapts one small habit at a time. Fewer layers, longer hours in the fields, more vegetables and fewer dried things at supper. You find yourself helping with irrigation trenches, now not because anyone asked, but because you can't help noticing the way the water runs too fast here, too slow there. The elder nods at you one day and hands you a stick to measure depth. That's the entire ceremony. You're part of the crew now. Welcome to the team. Historians argue whether village systems reabsorbed outsiders out of necessity or compassion. You lean toward necessity. Food won't grow without hands. But there's kindness too, hidden in the way someone always leaves you the last cooked yam, or how the youngest kids now feel brave enough to throw pebbles at you and then giggle when you pretend to fall over. Your back aches more these days, less from hardship and more from repetition. Bending, lifting, bending, lifting. But it's a good ache, the kind that whispers, "You matter." A fringe theory once suggested that manual labor has a meditative rhythm that rewires the brain after long-term trauma. You don't know if that's true, but you know it feels better to dig a trench than to sit alone. You've taken to wearing a wide-brimmed hat that makes you look like a poorly drawn scarecrow. The villagers adore it. A little girl gave it to you after finding it crushed beneath her uncle's cart. You reshaped it, cleaned it, stitched a flower to the side. Now it's your signature look. You've never been stylish before. This might be your peak. One afternoon you help rebuild a section of the granary wall. Midway through, someone starts singing. You don't recognize the song, but you join in. You hum when the words escape. You tap the beat against the stone. Before long, the entire crew is singing nonsense verses about frogs and falling hay bales. It's absurd. It's perfect. At the evening meal, a man you barely know hands you a folded square of cloth. Inside is a stitched map of the region, drawn in thread and sweat. It's not accurate. Rivers curve too sharply and mountains are just angry triangles. But it's beautiful. He says, "Just in case." You ask, "In case of what?" He just shrugs. You keep it anyway. Night falls slow and sweet. You sit by the edge of the goat pen watching stars try to outshine each other. A kid, the goat kind, leans against your leg, chewing something that may once have been your sleeve. You let it. You've stopped worrying about your appearance. Vanity doesn't survive much siege. Your thoughts drift to the world outside. You haven't seen a Mongol banner in over a year, but the scars still walk around inside people. That boy who never shouts. The woman who counts her fingers every morning. The man who sharpens tools with too much focus. Healing isn't linear. You've heard that phrase. Now you understand it. You doze beside the pen wrapped in your new, not quite fashionable cloak. A dream visits. You're walking a path between two hills and birds fly overhead, but none of them have wings. They float like bubbles, directionless and fragile. You wake up thinking about that. Maybe the dream is nonsense. Or maybe it's a reminder that even broken things can rise. The next day brings news. A trade caravan spotted 2 valleys away. Their arrival is expected within the week. The village buzzes with a mixture of excitement and dread. Supplies, stories, maybe trouble. No one knows what these traders bring. You volunteer to help set up a temporary market stall despite having nothing to sell. Your job is to smile and make sure the goats don't eat the goods. A noble task. The morning the caravan arrives, everything smells like cinnamon and sweat. They bring cloth spices, trinkets, and rumors. Mongol commanders retreating, new governors rising. Some say the empire is fracturing, others claim it's just regrouping. Historians still can't agree on the timeline of Mongol decentralization. You figure no empire lasts forever, but some fall louder than others. One merchant tries to sell you a carved bone whistle. It makes a sound like a sneeze echoing in a cave. Useless. You buy it. It becomes your favorite possession. Children beg you to play it every evening. You do. Badly. On purpose. It becomes a ritual. That night, the travelers set up tents and lanterns. Stories are exchanged like currency. One woman swears she saw a monk fly. Another claims she found a river that sings. No one believes her. She doesn't care. The story matters more than the truth. You talk to a trader who's been to the far west. She speaks of lands where snow never falls, and people write poems in sand. You ask her if she's ever seen peace. She says, only in gardens. That sits with you. You share some of your carvings. A bird, a rabbit, something that was supposed to be a fish, but turned into a particularly fat spoon. They trade you dried figs for them. You've never tasted figs before. You eat one too fast and almost choke. Everyone laughs. You do too. Eventually. After the travelers leave, the village feels slightly emptier, like someone's blown out half the candles. But the quiet returns familiar and grounding. You return to your tasks, but you find yourself checking the road more often. Listening for wheels, footsteps, distant chatter. You've begun building a bench outside your shelter. It's uneven and splinters easily, but you call it the throne. You sit on it in the evenings and declare wild proclamations. I hereby ban all onions, you shout one night. No one listens. It's perfect. The next week is calm. Work, laughter, shared bread. One child loses a tooth and insists on planting it. So it can grow back, she explains. You nod solemnly. Who are you to argue with hope? The goats remain unruly. One chews through your water pouch. You scold it gently and then share your lunch. You're turning into someone with too much softness. That used to be a danger. Now it's a strength. As night falls, you carve another bird. This one has wings, wide, confident. You name it after a word you haven't heard in months tomorrow. You wake to birdsong, real birds this time, not dreams or carvings. The sound startles you. For weeks, you've grown used to the quiet clamour of survival goats, bleating buckets, clanking the scrape of wooden soles on packed dirt. But today, the birds sing like the war never happened. And maybe for this single morning it didn't. You stretch your arms and crack your back, grumbling something about being too young to creak like this, and too old to stop it. Breakfast is leftover millet cakes crusted at the edges, but soft enough if you soak them in goat milk. You sit on your lopsided throne and eat like you're royalty, nodding to the goats as they parade past. One of them bleats in response, and you're convinced she's judging your posture. You straighten up, a little. A new task awaits repairing the village's watchtower. Technically, it's just an old tree platform, 3 wobbly ladders tall, but it counts. You're not afraid of heights, you say. You say this loudly. You say this while visibly sweating. Still up you go. Historians debate whether village lookouts were strategically effective or more of a psychological comfort. You understand now it doesn't matter. It feels better to know someone's watching, even if it's you. Even if your view is mostly goats and one particularly enthusiastic goose. The platform creaks like it's composing a song of imminent collapse. But you sit anyway. From up here the world widens. Trees stretch farther than you thought. The road curves more gently. You spot 2 traders returning on foot, their cart broken somewhere out of sight. You wave. They wave back. You might be becoming a fixture of the landscape. You spend most of the morning weaving extra rope ties into the ladder. The sun climbs steadily and your skin starts to sting. You tie a damp cloth around your neck. Someone once told you that sunburn is a medieval rite of passage. Or maybe you imagine that. Hard to tell these days. By midday, a group of children climbs up to join you. Is it safe, they ask. You say absolutely not, then grin. They ignore you and clamber around like squirrels. You guide them toward the thicker branches. They pretend they're lookout spotting dragons. You don't correct them. There's a strange comfort in this moment above ground, above worry. Just a gang of dusty kids and a tired adult pretending things are fine. One boy points to a dark smudge in the sky. Smoke, you squint. No, just a hawk circling. Still your heart flinches. You don't stop watching the sky for the rest of the day. A fringe theory once claimed that early warning towers like this could be seen as symbols of communal trauma monuments, not to power, but to fear. You think it's both. And something else, they're also places where kids can pretend to be knights, and goats can't follow you, and the wind smells like hope, even if it's just from the direction of the river. You stay up there until the sky shifts. Golden hour. The village lights up in warm amber. Thatch roofs glow. Even the mud walls blush. You feel a pang. You've never called this place home out loud, but it's creeping in. Down below, someone's shouting your name or the version of it they've settled on. It sounds like a sneeze. They need your help with the chicken coop. You descend slowly, careful on each rung. Your knees pop like bubble wrap. The coop situation turns out to be less about construction and more about negotiation. Two roosters have declared war. A girl named Layla explains their history like she's writing a tragic play. Apparently one stole a worm from the other months ago, and the grudge never healed. You offer to separate them. She gasps, like you've just suggested banishing one to the shadow realm. So instead, you build a mini fence, 2 sticks, and a hollow log to establish neutral ground. She approves. Later, you find yourself invited to a game. Not one you know. The rules are made up as you go. It involves stones lines drawn in dust and lots of shouting. You lose. Repeatedly. Spectacularly. The village elder claims this proves you're trustworthy. Only liars win, he says. You accept this philosophy with humility and a bruised knee. At supper, someone shares news from a river town a new market is opening. They're asking for goods, carvings, cloth, preserved food. It feels like a door creaking open. Commerce, normalcy. You wonder if you'll send something. Maybe the bird you carved with wings. You sit beside the fire that night. Legs stretched, fingers stained with dust and plum juice. The stars are out in force. The smoke curls upward, and for a fleeting second you feel like you're not below the sky but part of it. A drifting spark among thousands. A boy crawls into your lap without asking. He falls asleep in seconds. You don't move. Not even when your leg goes numb. Not even when your eyes sting. A younger version of you would have panicked. Now you just breathe slowly and watch the flames. You remember something, the sound of marching feet from years ago. The heavy drum of hooves. The way people scattered like dry leaves. You remember hiding in a barley field, heart punching your ribs. And you remember thinking, I will never feel safe again. And yet here you are. Numb leg, sleepy child, firelight. It's not peace, but it's close enough for now. Someone offers you a cup of something sweet. You take it without asking what it is. It tastes like herbs and honey. You nod to the giver. They nod back. No words needed. In your shelter that night, you stare at your makeshift ceiling and wonder what happens when peace feels normal again. Do you forget? Do you forgive? Do you get to dream beyond survival? You reach for the map stitched in thread. Run your fingers along its crooked lines. It still doesn't make sense. It still matters. Before you sleep, you whisper something to the quiet. Maybe a prayer. Maybe just noise. But it feels like hope. And for once, that's enough. You wake in the deep blue hush just before dawn, the time when even the wind forgets to move. It's cold, the kind of damp chill that slips through the fabric of your blanket and sets up shop in your bones. You don't move at first. You listen for silence, for birds, for anything that doesn't sound like hooves or shouting or the scrape of armor against armor. All you hear is a faint snore nearby. Someone has rolled off their mat again. Probably Toma. He dreams loudly and sleeps like a dropped sack of barley. The fire's gone out. It always does. You add a few twigs and coax it back to life with a patience you didn't know you had a year ago. You're not sure if that means you've grown wiser or just more resigned. Either way, the flame stirs like a sleepy animal, then catches, then crackles softly. You warm your hands, counting your fingers as if surprised they're still there. Breakfast is hot water with a slice of root if you're lucky. Today, you're lucky. Someone left a scrap of flatbread too tucked into a cloth. You eat slowly like it's a feast. Maybe it is. There's a plan today. You're joining a few others to visit a neighboring village. It's not far, maybe an hour by foot longer, if you stop to gawk at birds or argue over paths. The idea is to check on them, trade a few things, and mostly confirm they still exist. That's become a real concern these days. You sling a satchel over your shoulder. It's mostly empty, meant to come back full. Dried plums, salt, rumours. You don't talk much on the way out. The others are quiet too. Not grim, just used to conserving words like food. The road is more a suggestion than a structure. Dirt packed by repetition. You pass trees that look like they've seen too much. One has an arrow lodged in its trunk. Nobody comments. You just keep walking. Historians often argue whether these paths were truly maintained or just remembered. You now understand it's both. The land remembers where feet have pressed and where fear has turned men back. You step in the rut's walk, where it's worn, and trust the ancestors knew what they were doing. Halfway through, you pause to drink from a stream. The water is cold pure and tastes faintly of minerals. Someone tries to skim a stone. It fails. You all agree it was a noble effort. A rabbit darts by and you consider the ethics of chasing it. You let it go. The world has taken enough. You reach the village by mid-morning. It's smaller than yours, quieter, but the smoke from their hearth means they're still alive. Relief is a strange flavour. Part joy, part exhaustion. Like dropping a load you forgot you were carrying. They greet you cautiously, then warmly. There's a brief exchange of tokens. A smooth stone from their well, a strip of woven bark, some dried fruit. Nothing of great value, everything of great meaning. These small rituals are how trust survives. You share news. No new raids, no fresh threats. Just the regular anxiety like rain clouds that never pour but also never leave. They nod. They know that weather too. One elder there tells a story of a girl who once sang to ward off fear. She'd sit outside the huts during storms and hum until people believed the sky would listen. No one remembers her name, but everyone remembers the song. He hums a piece of it. It's more vibration than melody. But your chest tightens anyway. They offer you something unexpected, a handful of flower bulbs wrapped in cloth. For planting, they say, as if that's normal. You blink. planting hope growth. It's almost rude how beautiful that idea is. You take them like they might break. Before leaving, you help them mend part of a fence. It's slow work. One boy keeps handing you the wrong size stick on purpose. You pretend to be annoyed. He grins like he's won something. The walk home feels lighter. The satchel is fuller, but so is something else you don't name. You pass the arrow tree again and stop this time. You tug it free. It takes effort. The bark has grown around it slightly. You turn it in your hand. It's old, worn, possibly Mongol, possibly not. History blurs when it embeds itself this deeply. You toss it into the underbrush. Enough reminders. Back home, you're greeted with soup and questions. You answer half. The rest you file under better left felt than spoken. You show the bulbs. A few villagers scoff. Wrong season. No time. One woman touches your arm and says, "Let's try anyway." So you dig. You find a soft patch by the path. Kneel. Press the bulbs gently into the dirt like you're asking permission. You cover them with soil. Whisper something that might be a blessing or an apology. The day ends with music. Not instruments, those are rare. Just a few voices low and steady. One man keeps time by tapping a stick against his knee. It's off rhythm. It's perfect. As the sky darkens, stars appear like shy guests. You lie on your back, fingers laced behind your head. Someone passes you a boiled root. It tastes like earth and effort. You chew slowly. You think about maps again. Not the stitched one, but the map in your head. The one that marks who's safe, who's gone, who might return. It's always shifting like rivers that forgot their courses. But today, one dot glowed a little brighter. One village still breathes. That's worth redrawing things for. You close your eyes. The fire pops once, then settles. You let yourself believe the bulbs will sprout. That one day a child might see them and ask what they're called. And someone will say, hope. Or maybe just flowers. Either way, they'll bloom. You wake in the middle of the night, unsure what stirred you. It's that deep velvet dark again, the kind of darkness that feels thick, almost physical, like you could reach out and shape it. The fire has gone to embers. No breeze, no voices, just the quiet buzz of stillness. You sit up slowly, blinking away sleep, straining to hear something. Anything. A dog whines somewhere low and brief, then nothing. Your hand finds the arrow you kept beside your bed. Not the same one you pulled from the tree yesterday, but one like it, older, darker, less sharp. You've been sleeping with it near you for weeks, not because it's a weapon, but because it's a reminder of what survival memory. No one's quite sure anymore. The others are still asleep. Toma's foot sticks out from under his blanket, twitching as he dreams again, maybe of soup, or being chased, maybe both. You lie back down, but don't close your eyes right away. You think of the bulbs again. You picture them warm in the dirt, wrapped like tiny promises. It's far too early for anything to sprout, but you imagine green shoots anyway. In your head, they curl toward the sun, like they already know it's worth the risk. Historians still debate whether villages like yours truly found moments of peace between raids, or if those quiet times are just gaps in the surviving records. You've decided that yes, the peace existed, but it wasn't quiet. It was the kind of peace where even silence had a heartbeat, a flutter, a tremor of tension just beneath. Morning comes grey and damp, the kind of day that never fully wakes up. Clouds sag low over the hills. The ground is soft and clings to your boots like it doesn't want you to leave. Today, there's word of movement in the east. Nothing confirmed, just whispers like smoke on the wind. You're not sure if it's Mongols, bandits, or just someone's cousin with a loud horse. Either way, the village decides to be ready. Ready these days means patching walls, checking stores, and moving the animals into the tighter pens. It means sharpening what can be sharpened, hiding what can be hidden, and pretending it's all perfectly routine. You're put on lookout duty. That means climbing the old watch platform on the hill, a lopsided structure that groans like it knows how pointless it is. From the top, you can see far fields forest the thread of road leading away and back again. It's beautiful in a weary kind of way. You settle in. The wind finds you immediately and sets up shop inside your clothes. You huddle in your cloak and scan the horizon. Time crawls. You count birds, clouds, regrets. Someone brings you tea. It's lukewarm but welcome. You drink it like it's a gift from a king. From up here, the village looks smaller than usual, fragile, like a toy made of sticks and stubbornness. You spot kids running in the muddy lane. A goat escapes his chased escapes again. It's oddly comforting. You think about your parents. You think about the idea of them more than their faces. They're blurry now, like a dream someone told you once. You wonder if they'd be proud, or just surprised you've made it this far. In the distance, a bird circles, a hawk maybe. You follow it with your eyes until it disappears into the grey. You sigh long and deep and lean against the wooden post. You almost doze off when you hear something. Not loud, just different. A rhythm. Hooves, no too uneven. You squint and spot a figure on the road. Alone, cloaked, moving slow. You tense. You wait. Closer. Closer. It's a merchant. Or at least dressed like one. His cart is missing a wheel and being dragged by a mule with the posture of a philosopher. You exhale and signal the gate. They wave back. The merchant lumbers in. Later you hear the stories. He'd come from a burned-out town. Said the fires had died down, but the smoke was still learning how to forget. He'd lost 2 fingers to frost one to a deal gone wrong, and nearly everything else to people more desperate than him. But he smiled when he said it, as if that counted for something. He traded cloth for grain stories for a place to sleep and rumours for stew. One of the children asked if he'd seen a dragon. He said yes once, but it turned out to be a rooster in poor lighting. The kid gasped anyway. That night, the village gathers around the fire, listening to him. He speaks slowly with pauses that feel like footsteps on a creaky floor. He talks of cities with walls taller than trees, of rivers that run backwards, of spices that smell like sunlight. You sit with your knees to your chest, staring into the fire, letting the words wash over you like warm rain. When the fire dies, he's still talking, even if no one is listening anymore. Maybe especially then. You fall asleep before making it back to your mat. Someone throws a blanket over you. In the dream that follows, you're flying. Not fast, not high, just floating above the roads. Below you fields stretch out lined with glowing dots. Each dot is a village lit from within. Safe, whole, singing. You wake just before landing. The next day arrives with an unexpected gift, sunshine. Not warm, not generous, but sun nonetheless. It spills down the thatch roofs in streaks, catches on puddles like coins in a beggar's bowl, and makes everything look slightly less doomed. You blink at the brightness like someone who's forgotten it existed. You stretch, creak, and rise. There's work to do, obviously. Always is. The walls didn't magically fortify themselves overnight. The animals didn't feed themselves. And the merchant who slept like someone who'd outrun nightmares is now bartering for a knife that isn't technically for sale. You let the morning buzz around you while your brain catches up. Then a whisper returns. Not from the east this time, but the south. More rumours. More someone said, someone saw kind of talk. But it's the kind of talk that makes shoulders tighten and feet shift. Still no alarm yet. No horns. No screaming. That almost makes it worse. Waiting always does. By midday you're hauling wood, repairs, reinforcements. You can't remember the last time the village wasn't being readied for something. You wonder if it was ever truly not ready. Maybe you were born into readiness. Maybe readiness is just another name for exhaustion with posture. While dragging a beam to the west wall, you hear laughter. Real laughter, not polite, not nervous. The full-throated kind that comes from a belly with something left in it. You turn and see Toma, that ever-hungry dreamer, slip in the mud and nearly take out 3 goats. The goats look offended. The kids nearby explode with joy. It's a strange thing, laughter during fear, but maybe that's exactly when you need it. Historians still argue whether medieval communities used humor as a coping mechanism, or if it was just the natural consequence of boredom and misery smacking into each other. Either way, you're grateful for it now. Afternoon rolls in, the clouds don't. You sit for a moment near the well, letting your arms rest. Someone hands you a chunk of cheese. You're not sure who. You eat it without asking. Then someone else appears at the edge of the trees. A woman, not familiar. She's holding something bundled in cloth. You see her before the others do. She walks slowly. Not scared, not bold either. Just moving. A rhythm you don't trust. You rise. Walk to meet her. As you get closer, the bundle reveals itself a child. Sleeping, you hope. You reach her. She looks at you with eyes like cracked glass. She says a name, not yours. You shake your head. She nods, not surprised. Just disappointed. You take her in. You take them both in. That night, the village is quieter than usual. Not from fear, from thinking. That's somehow worse. The merchant is gone by morning, leaving behind a scrap of cloth with a half-drawn map on it. It might mean something, might not. You tuck it into your belt. You dream again. This time it's the river. You're on a boat, alone. It moves without paddles, without wind. The water is black, but not cold. Around you the trees bend toward the current as if whispering secrets. You don't speak. You just drift. The moon above is full, and it watches you like a parent forced to stay distant. Ahead, a light glows orange, flickering warm. You reach for it. You wake before touching. The days bleed forward. Nothing happens. Everything happens. Some mornings are quiet, others loud. Some days stretch, others snap. You mend, you carry, you bury, you harvest, you hide, repeat. They come again eventually. The riders. Not many. A scout party. You spot them from the watch platform before they get close. This time the horns do sound, but the riders don't attack. They pause, assess, then turn. A test, you guess. Or maybe a warning. Or maybe they were just as tired as you are. You don't know which would be worse. The next evening, as you sit with Toma and the kids near the fire, someone asks about the stars. What are they? They want to know. Holes in the sky, says Toma. Spirits watching, says another. You say nothing, but inside you think reminders, markers, little flashes of proof that even darkness can be bright sometimes. The child you took in her name is Elia, by the way, has started speaking. Just little things, names, colours, sometimes laughter. That sound again. The one that means maybe, just maybe, you're not broken beyond repair. You don't know how long this will last. No one does. But tonight, for the first time in a long while, you think maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe surviving isn't about certainty. Maybe it's about soup and laughter and carrying the weak and watching the stars while the fire crackles low. Maybe it's about resting your head on the same hard mat in the same worn village and dreaming the same soft dreams that don't end in fire. Maybe. And now, as the fire fades in our little village and the last footsteps settle into silence, take one more deep breath. Let it stretch through your shoulders, your chest, down your arms and legs until even your toes feel still. The wind has dropped for the night. The trees no longer rustle warnings. The animals lie curled in their stalls. A faint glow lingers above the embers, like a memory refusing to vanish completely. You've made it through one more day. That's no small thing. Not in this world, not in any world. You've carried, mended, fed and waited. You've worried, you've watched, you've wondered, and now you let it all go, just for a while. You don't need to stay awake for what comes next. It can wait. Whatever it is, it can wait. Tonight your body deserves rest. Your mind deserves quiet. Your heart deserves peace. The stars above twinkle in their ancient rhythm, and somewhere perhaps far off, perhaps inside your chest, a lullaby begins. No words, just feeling. Just that gentle melody of survival humming through the dark. So curl in, close your eyes. Let your breath match the rhythm of that soft unseen song, the one only you can hear, the one that says it's okay now. You're home, you're safe, you're enough. Sleep well,